It's been a very long night. Welcome to Scotland. So the first location on this adventure around Scotland is Loch Lomond. Now, behind me the loch is expanding way off into the distance, but just along the bank I can see there's an old house nestled in some trees with a mountain in the background. And I thought I'd make for a fun first photograph on this spot, so let's have a look at the camera and we'll take the first photograph. So I've thrown a polarising filter on the front of the lens just to take some of the glare off of the loch, because it's a bit shiny and we just want to cut through that a little bit and just stop it from being so bright in the foreground. Camera setting to f11, a 20th of a second, ISO 200, and I've focused on the house way off in the distance. 2-second timer. Here's the photograph. So we've left the banks of Loch Lomond now, and driving up towards Ben Nevis and Fort William, I saw a sign for the Falls of Falloch. Now I've probably completely mispronounced that, but that's the best pronunciation I can do. Now it seemed like something that just needed to be visited with my need for long exposures and waters. And wow, these waterfalls really do not disappoint. Now I think I've found a composition from this spot. It's possibly going to need a 6mm Lower lens, but it's a bit scruffy around the edges, so I'm just going to need to figure this one out, figure out a crop for it in post, and just do all that kind of thinking before we take the photograph. There's a really big waterfall down in the bottom that I really want to use as a subject. There's some trees, some rocks, some mountains, some fog, some low cloud in the backdrop. It looks like something that may work really well. I just need to really take some time and figure this one out. All right, so I've managed to figure something out now. I've thrown the 6mm Lower lens on. It's a full frame equivalent of a 12mm lens, and it's just going to allow me to throw a nice square crop down the middle of this and just tidy up the edges. There's a lot of scruffiness going on with some branches around, and I just kind of wanted to cut through that, eliminate as much of that as possible, and just get this waterfall, the rocks and the trees and everything in the frame. So we've got the 10-stop ND filter on, we've got the polarising filter on, we're at f5, 8 seconds, ISO 200. Here we go, using a 2-second timer. I'll show you the final photograph. So around every corner there's something new. Check out this bad boy. So this is an absolute gem of a find at the end of this path. I didn't expect to see a waterfall this big when I got to the area. So let's look at some camera settings and take this photograph. So I've got the polarising filter on again. The pool down there is jet black, so with the polarising filter, the rocks and the pool and everything, they're really, really dark compared to the waterfall, which is really, really bright. It's throwing some really nice natural contrast in there. I've got the 10-stop ND filter on once again, just to give it that long exposure. Look, f6.3. 15 seconds, ISO 200, 2-second timer. Here's a really big photo of waterfall. So a very good morning, boys and girls, and welcome to day 2 of my Scotland adventure. We've come down to the coast to a little village called Portknockie, I think it's called. Behind me is Bowfiddle Rock and the low tide and no cloud, so there's going to be no sunrise and no long exposure photographs to be taken. So I'm going to have to figure this one out because I'm not going to be here for very long. Let's get stuck in and see what we can do with no tide, no cloud, no sunrise, a very pretty rock formation. So I've just been having a play around with the camera for a few seconds, and I think I've figured something out that may work. Instead of waiting for sunrise, which I know for a fact isn't going to be all that spectacular because there's no cloud in the sky and, well, the tide isn't in at the moment, why not do something with blue owl before the sun comes up? Now, behind me there is a little pool of water that is just reflecting all of this blue light that we've got going on. And the side of this cliff face is just being illuminated by the blue light as well, so I thought we'll do something with that. Instead of waiting for the sunrise, it isn't going to happen. So let's get a camera set up and take a photo of both in the rock and blue hour. Right, so I've got the Olympus EM1 Mark II set up now, and I've had a brainwave. So I've thrown a graduated filter on and a polarized filter. So the sky off to the right-hand side of this image is a lot brighter than the sky off to the left-hand side of the image, which makes sense because the sun is rising off in that direction, but it's causing the sky to blow out every time you're exposed for the rocks. So I've thrown the graduated filter on, rotated it 45 degrees just so we can darken off that corner of the image. And I'm also going to take a series of exposures here and I'm going to stack these and create some HDR things. So we're able to expose for the rock, but I'm also able to bring back the sky as well a little bit later on. And then we can just choose from the exposures and just choose the sky, which looks the best. So we're going to start off with, well, we're going to do something underexposed here. So f6.3, 2.5 seconds. ISO 640. This camera's ISO variant, so we'll go with ISO 640 and just bring things down for noise later on if we need to. And then we're just going to expose again. That was 3 stops under. So now we're going to go 1 stop under, which is going to give us 8 seconds, which should be able to expose for the rock. And we've already got the sky in place on the previous frame. I hope this makes sense. Here's the photograph. So welcome to the shore of Loch Lomond in the Cairngorms National Park. Now this loch nestles nicely up against the mountain Cairngorm, and that's the subject for this photograph from here. Now there is definitely a photograph to be had, and I'm thinking it's most likely going to be a panorama of the loch, the tree line and the mountain in the background. Slight issue with that at the moment is the sun is directly behind the mountain and shooting into the sun is a big no-no. So we may have to camp around here for a little while and just see what the sun does, and as soon as the sun drops low enough in the sky to get that photograph, we may come back to this spot and grab it. So I'm going to make a note of the spot where we are now on my watch and my phone so I can come back to it in a little while. As soon as the sun drops, we'll hopefully get a nice panoramic photograph of this loch and the mountain behind it. But for now, let's go explore the area and see what it's got to offer. So you join me at around 590 metres up the side of the mountain of Cairngorm. Now, I didn't want to get tripods out and cameras out because it's so windy right now, but this place is also extremely, extremely breathtaking. I've been taking photos along the drive as I've been getting here. I just pulled the car over the side of the road just to take a picture of Cairngorm Mountain itself, and it's something I never thought I'd see in this country. It really does feel like I'm in a different part of the world to where I normally live. Alright, so I've made it 700 metres up the side of Cairngorm now. I think we'll call 700 metres a success because I never thought I'd be climbing 700 metres up anything. Today, well, I didn't climb it. I suppose I maybe climbed 200 metres, but hey ho, it still counts and I'm still quite high. Very cold, so I think it's now time to go back to the hotel today, and then we'll pick up again either tonight with some astrophotography or in the morning on the way to Ben Nevis. So let's just see what happens and I'll catch you when I get out again. So a very good morning, boys and girls, and welcome to day 3 of my Scotland adventure. Now yesterday morning we came down to Beaufiddle Rock and took some sunrise-ish kind of photographs of it. Today I thought I would use the clear skies to my advantage. It's currently 3 o'clock in the morning. I thought, stuff it, let's do some astrophotography with the Olympus EM1 Mark II and the Laowa 6mm lens. So let's get stuck in and see what we can grab with a very, very dark sky location. For the first time in my life, I'm quite excited about this one. So I've got the camera set up. I've got 40 seconds dialed in for the exposure time. F2 as wide as this lens will go, and the ISO is set to 1600. You can see a rock down in the foreground, and what we're going to do is, using the torch on the back of my mobile phone, we're going to light paint all of this rock and everything in the foreground, and hopefully get a really nice photograph of the Milky Way as it's rising above Beaufield Rock, which is off in the distance over there. Can't see it obviously because it's pitch black. Let's see what we can do. So I've just taken a test shot and, well, wow, I've never actually seen a night sky like this. You're not going to get the full effect of this on the back of the screen, but the rock here with all the waves sloshing around it, you've got Beaufield Rock in the middle there, you've got the two cliffs either side of this, and the amount of stars in this frame, I've never seen anything like it. And to top this up, this is a single exposure, and the Milky Way is so obvious in the middle of this frame. My mind has been blown by just how dark this site is. Obviously where I live in East Yorkshire, you don't get skies like this. Wow. So let me turn this image off the back of the screen now, and I will show you the techniques that I've been doing to take this exposure. All right, so let me show you the technique I use in order to take photographs like this. So you can see that the torch is on the back of my phone. The camera settings are exactly the same. So at f2, 40-second exposure time, ISO 1600. The lens is focused at infinity. Obviously on an ultra-wide angle lens, everything is in focus when you focus on infinity, so we don't really have to worry about things like that. And all we do, 2-second countdown timer on the camera. As soon as the exposure starts taking, just hold your phone in the sky or your torch or your light or whatever you're using to light paint the foreground, and just hold it there for as long as you think you need to do. Now this is one of those trial and everything. You're not going to get this right first time. Obviously the more times you do this, the better luck you're going to have. So I think that could be about enough. So I'm just going to whip the phone behind my back so it takes all of that light away from the foreground, and behind my back just turn the torch off. Easy as that. A little bit of light painting for an astrophotography foreground. Okay, so that's it from Portknockie. The plan now is to drive east coast to west coast through the night to get to Ben Nevis for sunrise. There's an old shipwreck on a lakeshore in Cornish. It's near Fort William, and that is the plan for sunrise, is a shipwreck with Ben Nevis in the background. But now I've got to drive for 3 hours through the night. Hopefully not get eaten by a Loch Ness monster as we drive along the shore of Loch Ness. It's a shame I'm doing that through the night. I would have liked to have seen that, but I've got other plans slightly more important than going looking for Loch Ness monsters. So I'll catch you on the west coast, hopefully just before sunrise. Oh man, that was a drive. The road along Loch Ness is horrible in the dark, raining, horrible. Didn't enjoy it, but we've made it. Fort William is just across the shore of this loch behind me. To my right hand side, there's the boat that we've come to take a picture of with Ben Nevis. Just in the background, it's currently shrouded in clouds, so I've taken an early morning blue hour photograph of it. I just want to show you what it looks like as we're here now. But the sky above me is starting to clear and the wind is blowing cloud all behind Ben Nevis. So there is a chance as the wind blows the cloud behind Ben Nevis, we may be able to get some colour and a little bit of light in the sky. So let's hang on and just see what happens. But I'm very excited to be here. It's a place I've always wanted to come. We finally made it. Hopefully we'll get a photograph that does it justice. So the sky behind Ben Nevis has indeed cleared up. There's still a lot of low cloud rolling around the top of it, but I don't think we're going to get any sunrise colour. It's just not really materialising. So I think we'll just have to take a blue hour photograph and just take it for what it is. These are the conditions that were here on the day, and that's what a photograph's all about, isn't it? It's about being there at that time. So let's get this camera set up and organised, and we'll take a really nice photograph of Ben Nevis. I hope. I also want to change orientation, and I'll talk to you about the filters as well. So for the last few minutes I've been taking landscape orientated shots of this, but I've flipped the camera around vertically. I want to try taking a photograph in this orientation as well. On the front of the camera I've got the polariser. You can see there's a lot of water on there, there's a lot of glare off there, so I've just rotated the polariser just enough to take some of the sheen off. It's not completely eradicating it, but it's getting rid of just enough. And I've also put a soft edged 3-stop graduated filter just to bring the sky back just a little bit. You can see the sky's quite bright up there. So let's go ahead, 2-second timer, F10. Let's change the white balance. Let's put it back into the actual mode. F10, 1.3 seconds is a bit much now. a quarter of a second, f10, ISO 200. Let's do this before the battery runs out. And there's one more photograph of Ben Nevis and the shipwreck. So I think that's going to be all she wrote from this adventure to Scotland. The water level around me is rising and I really just want to get out of here. It's a bit scruffier and messier around here than I anticipated it being, and I just want to get back to the car and away from this, because this water level, yeah, I assume it's tidal and it really does seem to be rising. Whew, right, I've literally just this second walked into the house, and I wanted to just put in the end of the video my thoughts on this photography trip. So the whole idea of this trip was to go up and photograph Fiddle Rock. That was the plan, that was the whole idea of this. And the rest of it was more of a, I don't want to say recce, but it kind of was. It was getting to know the area a little bit more. I don't know Scotland, I'm very unfamiliar with Scotland. And well, that was the plan, just to get to know the area a little bit. Now, the final shot you saw of me in the video of standing by Ben Nevis, I mentioned that the water was coming in, the tide was rising. I didn't realise at the time that it was actually a rising tide. I thought it was a lake. It turns out it was an inland sea of some description. And well, I ended up wading back to the car in very, very cold, knee-deep water. It wasn't a fun experience. It was funny afterwards, but at the time it was absolutely terrifying. Normally I'm quite clued in with tides. If I'd have realised, I would have checked. I didn't realise. Obviously I was starting the morning on the east coast and the tide was going out, to then go to the west coast and the tide was coming in. It caught me completely off guard. So from my experiences there, please just be careful when you're around tides. I nearly came unstuck. I got away with it, but I nearly came unstuck, and that was the first time for me and kind of woke me up a little bit there. Now, after I left Fort William, I drove through an area that I believe is called Glencoe. It was a massive valley with mountains either side, with waterfalls and snow-capped and clouds and all kinds of awesome weather. Now, I wanted to take some video from there, but I could see the weather coming down the valley and it was more important for me to grab photographs at that point. So unfortunately there was no video from the area, just an awful lot of photographs as I was taking. But you could see the weather coming down the valley and eventually it caught up with me. So a couple of the shots ended up being from the car windows. The sleet and the snow and the ice was coming into the car, the steering wheel was drenched, I was drenched, the camera, I kept having to dry it on my t-shirt, and it was just so much fun taking photographs of these mountains with backlighting but the weather in front of it, and it was just something I have never seen or experienced before. And just as you think Scotland is giving you everything it has to give, you then up in an area called Rannoch Moor, which is very similar looking to the moorland around where I live, only the backdrop was just spectacular with these snow-capped mountains in every direction. You could see the lakes with the islands of trees in there, the ponds, and the weather. That was the biggest problem on the way back, was the weather. There was so much I wanted to do, but the weather just didn't give it up for me, and it's kind of teasing me to go back and explore. So later on in the year I plan on visiting Rannoch Moor and Glencoe as a destination by themselves. Like I just said, I'm not very familiar with Scotland, and I really wanted to treat this weekend as a bit of a recce, a bit of an explore around and get to know the area a little bit more. And I'm glad I did it, you know. It's something on paper is so far away, yet in reality it's half a day's drive. I'm used to driving for 10 hours a day with my job. Half a day's drive is nothing in reality. It's very expensive in fuel. I will get that one out there. But something just to come back to, you know, later on in the year and just really explore the area and hopefully pick a weekend where the weather's just a little bit more favourable. The summer months, I think, wouldn't do the area justice. I would imagine it would be extremely pretty during the summer months, but with the snow capping of the mountains, it really just gives you a sense of scale and altitude and temperature and all. You know what I'm saying? It just gives it up in the winter with the snow capping and the cold and everything. I think in summer when everything's very green, and I don't think it would have the same effect. But driving through the valley, Glencoe, I believe it may be, and then Rannoch Moor, I experienced all kinds of emotions I never thought I'd experience just looking out of a car window at a landscape. It was a very surreal experience for me. I knew it was going to be pretty, I knew it was going to be a big landscape, but it's somewhere that I've wanted to visit for quite a few years now, to finally go and to finally see it and to realise it is actually on the same island where I live. That really opened my eyes to future possibilities for landscape photography and the goosebumps, the chills, and all that kind of stuff. It was something unexpected. I really did enjoy this weekend. If you did enjoy the video and you want to see more nonsense from me and my cameras every single week, please do hit the subscribe button down below and you'll see all of that kind of jazz. And if you did enjoy the video, do give it a like and a thumbs up, because it really does help bring new viewers to see my content. So until next time, I love you and leave you and say peace and goodbye.